Hello and welcome to the first Tippcast of 2022. Shane Brophy, you'd think that nothing would happen over the Christmas period, and yet here we are with loads to talk about. We were probably going to leave it another week or two before we even got Tippcast going again. But Colm Bonnar went and named his panel. Michael Quinlivan has stepped out for the year. Ballina in a Munster final, came up a little bit short. But we'll start off with the Tipperary panel. And sure, look, the first thing to note is that John Bubbles O'Dwyer hasn't been named in there. If you go to the All-Ireland finals that he's played in over the years, and they've all been against Kilkenny, he's averaged something like 5 points per play or 1-2 or 1-3, something in that range. So when Tipperary are humming, he's normally the one who's humming. He's only just turned 30 years of age, maybe 3 months ago. What are your thoughts on this?
Sure, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. There's no doubt. In the big games, John O'Dwyer is generally always showing up. I suppose it's maybe always the mundane league matches where you'd say sometimes you'd wonder about his appetite. But in fairness, come the championship, he was always there, and we saw the Munster final last year when things were going well for Tip. He was flying it. It's an interesting one. I've been trying to find out a little bit more about whether he's officially gone or whether he's doing his own private training program now. I haven't been able to confirm anything at this stage. Look, in terms of if he's doing behind the scenes training, fine, but would he be not better doing it within the group? I would have thought. So look, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that it's sort of it's one of these statement moves a new manager will make coming in to where you I wouldn't say a sacrificial lamb, but you sort of make a big statement of sort of maybe letting a big name player go, and I think John O'Dwyer is that. But I would have thought, if nothing against John, I always thought he could have been vulnerable to the new management, just in terms of, I suppose, how would you say, Bonnar and he'd be more old school. Like, is he more inclined to carry, I would say, a luxury hurler in terms of John O'Dwyer? I wouldn't, not luxury in a bad way, but you could watch John O'Dwyer swinging a hurl right and left all day long. But is it a sign that Bonnar is going back to hard working players, really guys that are going to get stuck in? And that's just the way I'm thinking of it. And it would be I think, if that was the case, maybe John is hard done by. But I think we won't know for a few weeks or whether he's officially gone or not. But I think maybe it's a statement sort of thing that, okay, the rest of nobody's infallible here. And that's not to say maybe some of the other big names won't get dropped before the championship comes in April. I don't know what you think.
To me, I mean, John O'Dwyer is too talented not to have in there. And like, if he's had every opportunity in training and isn't playing well, you obviously don't play him. But if he's producing, you do. And I know what people say, luxury player, and he's great when you have the ball, and maybe he doesn't get the work rate done going the other direction. And for example, if you were to play him wing forward, can he do the job tracking Kyle Hayes, for example? Because everyone's going to measure themselves against Limerick, and probably not. But you're not really going to play him there. Is he an option for centre forward? Can you do with him like what you do with Patrick Horgan in Cork? I mean, I think delivering a nice little crossfield ball, like try and dominate the middle third, play a nice ball to pop in front of Bubbles in full forward, let him turn and do the sort of damage that he can do. I mean, I'm going to name some talented hurlers here who are all worthy of their place in there. And I'm going to ask you, are these lads considered workhorses in the forward line either? Like, I wouldn't say Jason Ford is the biggest workhorse in the world. He's very, very talented. Like himself and Bubbles, both great risks, but I wouldn't say either of them are massive workhorses. I wouldn't say Jake Morris is a massive workhorse. Like, these are really good players, fully deserving of being in there. But I wouldn't consider him is Paul Flynn a workhorse? Yeah. He does work hard now, but you see the point I'm getting at. If there's room for players that I don't think are going to...
Yeah.
There was a great point made. I was speaking with... or maybe it was the time we spoke with Micheál Webster, or it could have been... No, it was Niall Rigney. I spoke with Niall Rigney recently, and he was talking about Barry Murphy. And he was having this conversation with Darragh O'Donovan, and he said his description of Barry Murphy doing the Crucian, what a blow it was that he's a 15 tackle a game man. So I don't know how many of those Tipperary players are 15 tackles a game men. But like, if you're going to have if you're going to drop Bubbles, then you can drop a few more.
Yeah.
I mean, when Tip are humming, he's normally the one who's sticking the knife into the opposition, and you will always need that.
Yeah, and he's incredibly accurate when he gets the ball in his hand. It's a strange one. It's like, I suppose if you like, there is speculation that he's injured, but so is Pádraig Maher. But yet Pádraig is still there, and Pádraig has said himself he's going to miss the early rounds of the league. So if there one thing being done for Bubbles and one thing being done for Pádraig, I don't know. Like it leads me to believe that he won't be back. Like, why not name him? Like not naming Willie Connors, you can understand, because like Willie's highly unlikely. Even if Tip get to an All Ireland on the 17th of July, he'll be highly unlikely to be. I'm sure he'll target it, like, but he's going to be out probably from the guts of 3 or 4 months, like, so. It's I suppose we'll have to wait and see. I just think the gap between the end of the league and championship is so tight that you can't really name a league panel and a championship panel. It nearly has to be a panel for the whole thing, like, so.
And can I ask you a question, just to add into that point of workhorses? Like, would you consider, and these are all good players again, but I would say Patrick Bonnar Maher, massive workhorse. If you're going to play him in the half forward line, Dan McCormick, massive workhorse.
Yeah.
But like, would you consider Conor Stapleton, Gerard Brown? Would you consider Cian Darcy workhorses either?
Yeah, it's a strange one. Like, there's so many reasons to think, well, why is he not there? Like, in terms of, you can make a case. It's I suppose we'll only know in time when, I suppose, we get Colm's opinion and sort of way. Maybe he is injured and he's on a recovery program. But then if he is that, and you're still angling to maybe use him in the championship, why not name him in the league panel? Like, so plus it removes all this maybe doubt or something of why. Look, if you're named in the league panel and you're not playing, it's fairly obvious you're injured. Like, so, yeah, I think it's one that's going to linger for a while. Like, and if Tip get off to a bad start in the league, like, they'll be saying, where's Bubbles? Like, and we're struggling maybe up front. Like, why isn't he there? Like, so it's definitely the eye catching one.
Yeah, it's like Richie Hogan is still on the Kilkenny panel, and he's going to be 34 in August.
Yeah.
And as I said, Bubbles has only gone 30 there not so long ago. So I look, we'll wait and see what Colm Bonnar has to say. So we're just speculating. We're not necessarily ramming home any points or criticising just yet. It's just talking it through. But other players not in there. I mean, Kieran Connolly, we were so impressed with him in the Lochmore run. He's heading away apparently. Niall O'Mara, Brian O'Mara, these are guys that are all apparently heading away for a while. Alan Tynan's not named, but I believe he could be back. He's carrying an injury at the moment.
And I just wonder, he could head to the footballers too, but I believe he's carrying an injury too. So look, he could be in the same boat as Bubbles, that if he clears up his injuries, improves his fitness, he could be back in. So it's just one of those, like, if you were sold on Bubbles and Tynan just for two names, like, why not hold on to them on the panel and I suppose remove all that out. So but if Tynan is officially gone, I'm sure David Power probably has made an approach maybe to get him in with the footballers too. So,
and why wouldn't he? Jerome Cahill hasn't been on the panel since 2019. He's still not there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's still his own decision. I mean, we're only doing a bit of guesswork there. Some of the new faces, Enda Heffernan. I mean, a lot of these players were involved in the Miller Shield, and maybe even, I mean, some of them won't be too delighted, but might have been involved against Kerry, and then the victory. I think it was a 3-point win over Wexford at the weekend. But I'll just run through a couple of names that are there. Some who did play, some who didn't. Enda Heffernan from Clonalty Rossmore, Conor Bowe from Moyne Tabaltui, Conor Stapleton from Turles Sarsfields, Grode O'Connor from Moyne Tabaltui, and Dylan Walsh from Ballingarry. And then returning, we'll come to it in a bit, but Dennis Maher and Gerard Brown.
Yeah, like, the way I look at it is, it's 7 new faces from last year's panel, but it's really only about 3 or 4 fresh faces. Like, Enda Heffernan is one, Conor Bowe, and Dylan Walsh, because like Cian Darcy has been and Grode O'Connor's been on the extended panel last year. Gerard Brown has been there before. Dennis Maher has been there before, and Cian Darcy's been there before. Like, so I probably expected a more fresher. So yeah, Conor Stapleton would be another one. Like, I expected a bit more freshness, but maybe maybe it's a sense of that this is the best we have at the moment, and maybe some more of those young lads, maybe the likes of Max Hackett, and I thought I was very impressed with her. Just to maybe feel they're another year away yet, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It was like you can't really hang your hat on some of the older guard, like Pádraig Maher, Noel McGrath, Bonnar, and Shane McCallan. Like if we're playing on the Easter Sunday, if we're starting with all four of those guys, you'd wonder, can we sustain that through the year? Are we? Personally, I think we're at a stage with some of those lads where we've got to use them like Brian Cody does with Richie Hogan. They've got to be sprung from the bench in the second half, maybe when other opposition players are tired and they're mentally fresh. Because maybe that's the way we're going to go. I'd be excited. I've been a big fan of Ender Heffernan's. I just think he's a real good nuggety halfback, cornerback. I can see he's definitely an addition there. Look, I think we're all excited to see what Conor Bowe could do at a senior intercounty level of the year with the footballers in terms of S&C, and he's a big unit. He's definitely filled out, and he's with UCC, I think, in the Fitzgibbon. I think he's one of the Cork schools anyway. So I think he'll be one. Garrod O'Connor probably didn't stand out at under 2021 level, but I can see why he's played well for the club the last couple of years, and just that sort of Tom Morrissey, Garrod Hegarty sort of wing forward there. If he gets up to speed over the next couple of years, maybe, and gets the couple of games here and there, I'd be excited about him. And I think Dylan Walsh, definitely as a minor, I was very impressed with him about 4 years ago. He's a real finisher, real old style corner forward, and he probably has a bit of filling out to do, but I'd be excited to see what he'd do over the next couple of months.
And remember when Kilkenny were so dominant, there was this thing that players would be on the panel for 3 or 4 years before you'd ever actually see them. So while you mentioned that maybe there aren't that many new faces, genuinely new in terms of the likes of Ger Brown has been there before, maybe this is now the year where, Craig Morgan has been there for a few years, Brian McGrath, Owen Conley, Robert Byrne, so on and so forth. There's a couple of names there that, even Ger Brown coming back in again. Maybe this is the year now that they're physically primed and ready. Sure, I think a couple of them, Brian McGrath and Paddy Cadell, we would have liked to have seen them starting in the last couple of years. So maybe now is the time that these lads, maybe they're ready and mature, and they'll just complement what is a very good spine to the team that's already there. I'm not saying Tipperary will be able to beat Limerick this year, but I sure as hell don't think Tipperary should be anything but neck and neck with any other challenger.
It's definitely you can definitely see the Bonnar imprint on it. There's a lot of there's loads of talent there, but there's definitely stress there on workman. I'm not surprised. Like James Quigley still there, because I thought he'd be a big fan of his real old style nuggety defender, Robert Byrne as well. Dennis Maher, in terms of his form at the moment, look, you think he deserves it, but when that ground gets hard in May or June, that's my worry about Dennis. What value does he offer? Because I suppose his footwork and maybe his lack of pace has probably always been maybe the thing that held him back. Are they looking at him maybe 5 minutes to go? If you're stuck, you throw him in full forward, and look, he could be that sort of a player. That'd be my concern with Dennis. That's in terms of his ability. And look, maybe they're going to go back to brass tacks, a big old style, have one man play 2 men full forward line, have one big and one small. Look, we saw the way he was a brilliant foil for Paddy Creedon at club level last year. But look, this is senior intercounty. I think you have to have a bit more in terms of what you've got to offer too. Look, Ger Brown is another one. Look, I suppose he's lost really 2 years since he played in that All-Ireland quarter-final there against Laois when he started that game, and he came on as a sub in the couple of games after that. So played against Kerry a couple of weeks ago. Got in a lot of ball, but I thought his decision-making in terms of his shooting from long range, particularly into the breeze, was very, very poor. So hopefully that will be those edges will be sharp and taken off him over the next couple of months.
Yeah, well, that's a big problem that, has to be ironed out of a lot of the Tipperary players. Is less it is shooting when you're kind of turning towards the sideline and shooting over your shoulder from 70 yards when you've got a handy little pass inside you. That's why Limerick are so good. They keep turning and handing the ball off to the next lad who's coming off the shoulder through, running through, and they're running towards the crossbar so that they can just stroke it over. That's Limerick gets so many handy scores just by giving that extra pass. And a player like Ger Brown, sure, look, it feels like I'm repeating myself, that we know he's got the talent to be among the very, very best hurlers in the country. But, you know, it's a case of making sure that he knows exactly what's expected of him when he gets out on the pitch.
I just think he's got to see the field. I mean, even
well, that's down to the manager too, and just simply say, look, Jared, go out there and make sure you pass the ball to the lad whoever's in the best position, and you will get those passes back yourself and get all those scores there's no need for Hollywood scores. We want to see you bursting through and being a threat to set up goals and knock the ball over the bar. If you set up other people, it'll come back to you and the whole team will be lifted.
Like if you were to go through that panel and potentially pick the starting 15, it'd be exciting enough. Like maybe next week, I suppose maybe at the moment you'd probably say Barry and Brian Hogan, it's much of a muchness between the two of them, and it'd be interesting to see whether Brian can force his way back into the team after last year. Like you have Cathal Barrett, like I think Craig Morgan has got to be in the team somewhere this year. Like I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they look at John Maher at fullback. I'm not sure whether he'd make an inter-county halfback, but definitely a fullback. I like him. Like you have Ronan Maher there. I think like Brian McGrath is going to be in that back line somewhere. He's too good not to be in the team now at this stage.
Yeah.
I think Owen Connolly could really force himself in there. I've named six backs without Pádraig Maher, and it's something I noticed last night. Like generally Tipperary panels before have always been named in alphabetical order. This panel, I don't know if viewers saw it on the website last night, it was named by position, and Pádraig Maher's been named in the forwards. So that was
a good spot by you. I have to give you that one.
Yeah. So like it's not a mince sprint because Patrick Maher is named in the forwards too, but it'll be an interesting one because like Pádraig has said himself, he's going to miss the early rounds, so it doesn't maybe leave an awful lot of scope. Like are they going to play him against Waterford or Antrim in the forwards? Like if you're looking at maybe March before he gets a game, like so it's do you think there's anything in it?
I don't know, but do you know what? Do you remember, I'm sure you heard about this at the time, but in 2010, after Tipperary got annihilated by Cork in the Munster Championship, there was a challenge match played against, I think it was Waterford, and, you know, there was such a concern about Tipperary winning ball in the forward line that Paddy Maher was played in the half-forward line that day. Now, it was an unsuccessful experiment, and obviously he went on to have a fabulous season as Tipperary won the All-Ireland that year, which we hate bringing up. I can't see it happening because... No. Like you've already kind of mentioned Dennis Maher and like, you know, getting around the pitch and that. And I think Dennis Maher's, it's worth having a go and just seeing him because like he was so good in the club championship and like, you know, a club manager has to pay attention to what's happening in the championship. Like he's such a physical handful that no matter who he's up against, they will have to be worried about him. Like he turns and goes at lads all the time. So I think based on the form of other lads, he's worth having in there and also the variety of a smash him up type player. But it'd be a lot to ask. If you threw Paddy Maher into the forward line for Thurles now, it would be a big ask to say, go out there and just, we know you haven't played there since maybe you were a kid, if you even played there as a kid. Go out and do there at inter-county when it's a different level altogether. And when you're hitting, I think he'll probably be hitting 32 or 33 pretty soon. I don't think it'd even be fair on him. Yeah. I think having him as an option in the back line, that's probably more suitable there. But do you think it's just, are we reading into it the way the team has been listed there?
It's
no smoke without fire.
No, that's it. Like it's like why name him down the list when you could have named him under the two goalies? Like that's my thinking of it. Like it's like you have Dylan Quirk who's been named as a defender and like he definitely in the Miller Shield and stuff. It seems to me that he looking to make his name as a halfback. Like so it's an interesting one. It's be interesting to see if anything comes out of it. Like you think, like he's probably like you'll be looking at. I'm just looking at the fixtures here. They're playing Dublin on the 26th of February. You think maybe he could be back by then? Are you going to play him in the forwards against Waterford a week later? I don't think so.
Where's the first game this year? The Waterford game, is that Walsh Park or is
Walsh
that
Park on the 6th of March? Yeah.
But what's the first league game?
Oh, Leash on the 5th, but he's said himself yesterday at the launch that he's going to be he's recovering from an injury and he's just working his way back, like so.
Yeah, like if in general, I look at that panel and I think not everything is perfect and there's an awful lot of work to do there. But I mean, I think Mark Keogh can have a big season.
Yeah.
We've already talked about Brian McGrath, like maybe Owen Connolly. Like when I was watching him against Kerry, now it was the issue of long wides from 100 yards. I mean, one or two of those from free sidelines and whatever. But he's physically filled out. He looks absolutely massive. And I'd imagine he can run all day, as Brian McGrath can, as Robert. Like Robert Byrne, actually, I thought was quite good. I know you liked Craig Morgan's performance there. I'd just like to see that bit of a devil in him. I mean, we all know the word that's used with cornerbacks, but I'd just like to see him be one of these players that corner forwards just detest. Like he's a lovely hurler, really good hurler, but I'd just like to see the bit of ignorance to go with it.
Oh, I think that could be got into him. I just thought that of all the players that got game time, he brought, just in terms of mentality and the level and intent, he brought I'd say very few of the other Tip players brought that day, in terms of he saw it as his opportunity and he got stuck in and he carried the ball forward at pace. And I just think it's a big year for him, but I just think he has all the attributes to be an inter-county defender. Like, so it's look, I think for Tipperary to have a chance of contending this year, they need about 3 or 4 maybe players to force their way into the team and inject a bit of energy. I could be looking at the likes of Morgan and the likes of Mark Keogh. Like, I know you could say that Mark Keogh has been there already, but he hasn't really established himself in the starting team. This is what I'd be saying. We need a couple of guys forcing their way into the starting 15, and I could be looking definitely Keogh, definitely Craig Morgan. I think Paddy Cadell is another who. Hopefully that injury against Kerry won't keep him out too long, because like you really don't want players maybe losing ground in terms of fitness and stuff and playing catch up as well. And like they'd be 3, and maybe if it got a Garrod O'Connor maybe pushing in, or Dylan Walsh, maybe it could be a year too soon. Whether it could be same for Jared Brown, maybe Jared's best impact could be coming off the bench this year. So it's there's potential there. I suppose we just have to wait and see in the league in terms of maybe, is there a difference? What type of game plan or the selectors looking to employ? Is it more traditional? Is it more possession based? It'll be interesting to see that. In terms of that, I'm sort of, it probably was no harm maybe getting out of the Munster League early, because like you could know as well as I do, if Tip went to Limerick last weekend, lost by 9 or 10 points, and you say, God, I would say that the pressure would be on, where they can go away, they'll play their few challenge matches, and I suppose hopefully hit the ground running in Portlaoise in 2.5 weeks' time.
Yeah, we're a week and a half on since Tipperary lost by 17 points to 14 to Kerry in the Munster Hurling League. Would you be overly concerned about that? I mean, look, we obviously have to give Colm Bonnar every benefit of the doubt. It's a pre-season game. You're down players. He's obviously digging deep into the barrel. He probably didn't even want to bring Willie Connors along. He obviously ended up with the double leg fracture and missing that Munster Junior football final with Ballina. Do you read into that? I mean, Kerry were down players too. They were down all the Kilmiley boys.
Yeah. I wouldn't read an awful lot into it, but like in terms of you'd be hoping in terms of application and attitude, that was the minimum requirement that day. And look, Colm said it himself, like that you can't just expect as a Tipperary to put on a Tip jersey, no matter how good we are, to go down there. If you don't bring the required work rate, you're going to get turned over, and that's what happened. Like I was going to say to a Kerry colleague before the match that when I saw Tip had won the toss, I said, God, we could have done with maybe Kerry winning the toss and playing with the breeze just to make it competitive. And sure, look what happened. Half time, Tip were 3 points down, having played with a Gale. Like, so I just thought there was a lot of naive play that day. Like, there was, I suppose Kerry were playing sitting pretty deep and looking to counter attack through the hand, like, and the ball being fired in, and where maybe there was a sweeper and maybe Kerry sitting deep. It's hard for forwards to play that day, but expecting like the ball being delivered in, and if they got their hands on it, there was nobody coming off the shoulder to take it. Definitely needed. There was a very raw performance that day. Like I wouldn't. There's no point in this Kerry team beat very much a Cork third string in the Munster League 4 years ago. Look, Cork went on to win Munster that year and should have beaten. They had Limerick beaten in All Ireland semi-finals. Look, I think in the greater scheme of things, the defeat it won't. Well, it won't cause too much trouble if we pick up a couple of early wins in the league. Like, but if Tip lose to Laois, I think the pressure is going to come on straight away.
Yeah, you certainly can't start slamming, the players or Bonnar or the panel in general over that. I mean, some of the players that were named that day that played aren't on the panel going forward.
Yeah.
But I would say that it looked like a bunch of players that were out on the field, like let's say a Fitzgibbon Cup team at their first training session, half of them don't know each other's names, so they're not communicating. They're not. To me, it looked like there was, and I was only watching on the stream, it looked like there was no communication between the players. It looked like they didn't think about passing the ball to each other. The only thing that stood out to me, first 15 minutes, Paddy Cadell, very good. Then he had to go off. I thought Robert Byrne did okay, but maybe he was able to sit in the pocket a little bit because Kerry were playing with a sweeper. But other than that, you couldn't take too much out of it. I mean, look at the team that Limerick put out against Kerry at the weekend, and they won by a cricket score. Barry Nash was the only All-Ireland starter from last year who played. So to me, it speaks quite poorly of what Tipperary have in terms of depth. And that's...
But I'd say it's a lot of it is like Limerick have a defined way of playing, and doesn't matter whether you're player 1 or player 30. I'd say they're all so comfortable in how they play certain tips.
But Stephen Lumpy was in his first game with Kerry here, and they're missing lads through COVID and all the Kilmiley boys. I don't really buy it.
I know, but Kerry, I would have seen a few Kerry's matches last year. They definitely played the very same way again. Whereas I think Tip definitely have to hone in on I think the one thing we've got to see Tip do this year is mind the ball an awful lot better. Like we can all be traditionalists and Tip say we have let's not go down the route of Waterford and Limerick and this short pass and stuff. But look, we can be pure. We can be purist as much as we want. But if it means losing matches, we're not going to stay purists forever. Like I'm not saying go down hand pass and everything, but you got to be able to mix your game up. Like so, and I think that's definitely something Tip have got to do.
Yeah, it's all about giving the ball to the man in the best position, running off the shoulder, and then delivering.
Definitely, and I think that one of the next big things we're going to get from the Tip management in the next few weeks is it'd be a signal of when they name who the captain is going to be. And I think if they move on to the next stage category, the likes of Cathal Barrett, John McGrath, Ronan Maher, Jason Ford, and just in that, I think that's where I think that would be a signal and a attempt to think, okay, the older guard have a part to play, but they won't be to the forefront. They'll be assisting, okay. Let's just say Ronan Maher, John McGrath, Cathal Barrett, you're the leaders of this team now. It's up to you to take this on. I would hope that's the way they're going to go, like, because like just based on last year of the older guard or any of them, can you say any of them are? I think your captain has got to be one of the players that you're fairly certain is going to be in the starting 15, and I'm not convinced Paddy, Bonnar, Noel and Shamey are at that stage anymore. I think you've got to be looking at Ronan, Cathal Barrett. You would think on John McGrath's form, he's got to be back in the team next year. Like so, I think I assume the captaincy will be named before they play the first game against Laois.
And I do agree with you. I do think all of those players that you've named still have a big role to play. I mean, maybe 1, 2 on different days can start, and I just imagine 1 or 2 of those, if they're coming on late in the game, whether it's the forwards or the backs, they can come on and really make an impact because they're experienced and they're still guys in great shape. And in terms of stick work, some of them are among the very best hurlers in Tipperary history. And what about the naming rights finally been sold for Semple Stadium, FBD Semple Stadium? As far as I'm concerned, does it bother me that much? No, not really. And if it helps create more financial support for Tipperary GA, do I care about a few letters being thrown in front of the stadium name? Not personally, I don't.
No, but same here. Look, sure, it's still going to be Semple Stadium for 99% of people. Look, the only difference is going to be when I write a match report, it'll be Shane Brophy at FBD Semple Stadium. Officially, I'm going to have to give the full name. When the fixtures come out every week from Croke Park or Munster Council, it's going to be FBD Semple Stadium and the fixture. That's the only difference is going to be like. So, look, I suppose in terms of the name, I suppose FBD, it's not it's a short 3 letters. It's much better than the new name. And I think McHale Park is it a 5 name? I think it's an insurance company on the front of it. I think it's 3 names then in front of McHale Park. So it's sort of a bit of an ugly, drawn out name. Nothing against the insurance company, but it's look, Semple Stadium is, I wouldn't say it's in financial trouble, but it's not in. It needs all the help it can get at the moment, in terms of, because it's an old stadium, it needs a lot of maintenance, where people think it's just about the grass pitch. It's not. You have to keep the ESB on, you have to keep the water flowing, you got to keep it clean, you got to keep it, I know that probably have plans in play, you have to keep it, the roof from leak and that sort of stuff. It is an old stadium compared to a lot of grounds, it's, look, I think it's no skin off anyone's nose. And look, if I know last couple of years, I think the Tipperary County Board, generally Semple Stadium has always washed its own face, but the last couple of years Tipperary County Board has had to inject a bit of money into it, to help them out. So you'd like to think, look, this money from FBD, which will be going straight to the stadium, that would ensure the Tipperary County Board are using the resources they have to in terms of coaching or everything in terms of on-field activity going forward.
We've plenty of people watching us here on the live stream at the moment. Boom Boom 43 says, if it was called FBD Insurance Stadium, I wouldn't like it, but as it's Semple is being retained in the name, then fair enough. Easy money, he adds. I'm the same. I mean, I live very close to what was once Lansdowne Road, and these days, to be fair, I suppose through the repetition in the media, I almost kind of call it the Aviva now. And I mean, that's just the way it is. So the fact that it's FBD Semple Stadium rather than just the FBD Stadium or something like that, I think that's nice. And I'm sure that's something that the Tipperary GEA kind of ensured was there, because it probably would have rubbed people up the wrong way if that wasn't retained. So.
That's it. It's the same with Nolan Park. It's you have to keep the traditional name there, or it's not going to work. I suppose Lansdowne Road probably didn't really have a name. Really, it was just the place of where the location of the ground. I would assume Parky Keeve is probably going to get a sponsor in the next few years for Sherrill Stadium. Any about Mulch Park, but it's look, it's free money. It's money that the county board don't have to put into the stadium. And look, you'd like to think, I know the plans are there for maybe to refurbish the old stand or the Canaan stand, but that's going to need millions of euros. And I suppose with financially at the moment, we're hoping to get crowds back in this year. That's probably going to be a few years down the line before that gets off the ground. I know they have plan permission for it, but I suppose unless a sugar daddy comes along that's willing to bankroll it, that's going to be on the long finger for a couple of years yet.
Speaking of crowds, I believe the Munster hurling final between Limerick and Clare sold out within minutes. 5,000 people going to that. So the appetite there, I actually think, obviously Limerick are on the crest of a wave, but I think Clare could be another team this year that we have to worry about. Shane O'Donnell is going to be back after his concussion worries. Hopefully he's okay, because he's an excellent player. Tony Kelly should be back in March. Peter Duggan is back in harness also. This could be a Clare team that, if you're a Tipperary man, he's starting to get a little bit worried about Munster this year. Cork got to an All-Ireland last year. Watford going well.
Sure, look, I think you'd have to be the only team you could probably guarantee will be in the top 3 in Munster is Limerick. I think after the other 4 is, I think it's all a much of a muchness. It's a toss of a coin. It's on the day. I suppose and I think Tipperary are probably in a difficult position, because 2 of our 2 away games are probably the 2 toughest ones, away in Waterford and away in Limerick in the championship. You're hoping to win your 2 home games and then pick up an away win on the road. I think going to Waterford and going to Limerick at the moment are the 2 toughest tasks you could get. So you're hoping to sneak 1 win out of the 2. Maybe playing Waterford the first game up could be ideal in terms of
that'll be fire and brimstone.
Oh, sure, look, it's going to be great, and having the dress rehearsal on the 6th of March too is going to be exciting stuff as well. Look, it's great. It's great to think that it's once it gets going on the 5th of February again in Laois, it's just going to come thick and fast the whole way along. It's going to be exciting stuff. I can't wait for the start. Really, I suppose the one thing thrown at the new format is that you're going to have the guts of 5 or 6 months without inter-county fair. But the 2 things I always say, it's not quiet, but the club season is gone. We saw the club season can throw brilliant stories without the inter-county game. And two, I always say it's look at the NFL in America. That shuts down for 6 months, but come September every year, it's the biggest sport in America. When people are just hungry for it, as you say, a 5,000 sellout in Cusick Park next Sunday. But from what I'm led to believe, if there could be an increase in attendance is being allowed from tomorrow, which means they could potentially sell more tickets later on in the week. So hopefully that's the case. Like, it's like, look, outdoor settings are safe. Like, so.
I'll stop at this stage. But do you know what? If I'm to play a little bit of a devil's advocate, in a way, wouldn't you be nearly happy that your least winnable game, because Limerick are just so imperious at the moment and Tip has struggled with them so much, that's away from home, so that you actually have home games against teams that you're really kind of focusing on beating. That's not being defeatist, but I kind of think if you were to think more kind of medium to long term for this season, it's maybe no harm to have your hardest game away from home. And
and that's probably something. Maybe Cork, isn't Cork Limerick the first round, isn't it, in Páirc Uí Chaoimh? Like, so that's probably one Cork would probably have maybe done with away from home. Like, was like
that'd be a brilliant game, by the way.
Oh yeah, but you're thinking like Limerick are fresh. Like you think the last 2 years, like, they've been short championships really, like, and like that's probably going to help Limerick in terms of their long. Like, I would have said, like, this Limerick team is going into their. You say if you're a normal year, you're going into your 5th year on the road. Would Limerick start to tire? But like the last 2 championships have been straight knockouts, so short. It's actually saved on their maybe their energy levels. So this Limerick team could go 6 or 7 years before maybe to start on the slide.
Yeah, not to mention they've Adam English coming through. He scored 1-1 the other day against Kerry. Colin Coughlin coming, Cathal O'Neill. There's a few more that haven't been sprung either. What about Ballina last weekend? Lost to Guinea of Gwilla in the Munster Junior final. Obviously a tough ass there, losing 4-18 to 1-6. This Kerry team is probably, I think they're like isn't it the 17th ranked team? Oh, sorry, is it the? Well, they're the
17th,
ranked team, and obviously Ballina and Tipperary is probably not obviously not as competitive as Kerry are in general. But Stephen O'Brien hit 1-2. Mikey O'Brien was at centre forward there. Willie Connors, obviously, we mentioned that double ankle fracture wasn't available. Not a whole lot you can say, just a little bit overmatched in that game.
Yeah, I got to see the first half of it, and I thought, I just think the notable difference was the composure of the Guinea of Gwilla team. Like, the amount of times Ballina had the ball and they were just so anxious going forward. They made some very, very poor decisions in terms of passing. Like, and there was instead of maybe taking that extra half step or half second to survey their options. I know they were probably anxious to attack them but then once the ball was turned over, Niamh Lilla would just pick them off going forward. And look, I think there's definitely something the Munster Council have got to look at it, particularly in terms of the intermediate junior football. It's the structures of how to, like, it's really whoever wins Kerry now in intermediate junior is more or less guaranteed the Munster intermediate and the junior championship. I think they've got to look at something that how do you try and match up the different grades and different counties. You could see, like, if the 17th best team in Kerry were playing technically the 33rd best team in Tip. Like, that leads to, and there's definitely a gap in standard in football between a lot of the counties in Munster, whereas in hurling it's different. And look, people might look at why are Kilmiley allowed into the Munster Intermediate as Kerry senior champions, but look, they won the Munster Intermediate hurling in extra time against the third ranked, or the 25th ranked team in Cork. But like, but you gotta. But there were 2 even teams in terms of ability, like, which is what you want really, that in terms of those competitions. I think that in terms of the intermediate football, I think that's definitely, and junior football, that's something the Munster Council have got to look at, because there's no streamlining between the provinces. Like, you go into Leinster and the Senior B champions of Offaly can be allowed into the Leinster Intermediate Championship, but yet the Senior B champions in Tip weren't allowed into the Munster Intermediate Championship. And it forced Tipperary into a name change to allow that to happen for next year. Like, I think the Munster Council should look at streamlining it across the board to have more even competitions in both hurling and football.
Yeah, because it make for a better product if they're trying to sell it for streams or get people through the gates or whatever. It just makes for better games. No one wants these annihilations that we're seeing. And even like Naas, they're after winning their second Leinster intermediate hurling title. They're the senior champions in Kildare, so they're number one team there, and they beat Oilgate Glenbrien, who I think probably about I'm not sure, was it 13 or 12 teams that were in Wexford, but like the 13th or 14th best.
And they beat Glenmore pretty well in the semi-final.
Oh yeah, they beat them by about 6 points. Yeah. So they're obviously very strong, but I think they're kind of caught between two stools. Also, they've a very, very good managerial setup with Tom Mullally, who's the Carlow manager, and Christy Keeley, who's a very good coach alongside him.
Well, like, isn't it brilliant to think that those semi-finals this weekend in the All-Ireland Intermediate, you have Derry, Kildare, Mayo, and Kerry in it. Like that's like as much as I'd love to see a Tipperary, and Tipperary have underperformed in these competitions, it's great to see those clubs from those counties in there. And I'm sure, look, and I'd like to think, look, if Naas win it, I'd say probably Naas are probably favourites at this stage. Like, that probably means the Kildare champion should go into the senior championship for next year. I think there's got to be, and same about Kilmiley, if Kilmiley win it as Kerry champions, that maybe there has to be a time when you got to rise a level and test yourself against the very best. Like, so just to make it more fair across the board.
Yeah, and you won't begrudge me wishing Naas the best in that, because Shane Walsh, who's from Feathered, he's part of the panel there with Naas. He's injured there at the moment, and I think he's part of the setup. So on behalf of him, hopefully, and he was a Tip intermediate hurler at one point, so hopefully they get the win there. Michael Quinlivan's not involved with Tipperary this year. Stephen O'Brien was asked about it at that FBD launch this week, and he says, Michael makes his own decision. I tried to give him a text and a call and just see, but this had been in the pipeline for a while. He's committed to his work. Michael has been a great servant for Tipperary over the last couple of years, and I totally respect his decision. I'll continue to keep in touch with him throughout the year and keep trying to twist his arm. I don't know if it's just a year or if it's a long term. I hope it's just a year. I'd love to see Michael back in a Tip jersey soon. Now, I know he's supposed to go away a couple of years ago. Pandemic hit, stayed around and won that Munster title. It is a huge blow. I mean, there are not many players that can do what he can do with a ball, which is, pick it up anywhere and just glide past people. He's just got this brilliant ability to get away from players. I'm just thinking of one instance it was the county semi-final or final playing for Commercials this year. He got the ball around the 65 and just glided past 3 or 4 players as if they weren't there. I mean, those type of players don't grow on trees.
They don't. To be honest, I'm not surprised that he's decided to take a year out, and I just hope it's that. And like, he was supposed to go early 2020, then the pandemic hit, and look, I suppose everybody was stuck in Ireland, so you think, why not get back in with the lads? And I just think he's like a player that he's lost a bit of hunger for the game. Like, apart from the Munster final in 2020, where he was brilliant at it, it was a 3 points in play. He was just a class act. Apart from that, I don't think his performance level has not been up. Like, that was an outlier in terms of his performances the last 2 seasons. And like, you look at last year, like, he was black carded or sent off against Longford in the playoff, and then he was sent off against
Kerry.
Unluckily so, but he was drawn in to make sort of one of those dunts or something, like, out of frustration, like, and like, both incidents were sort of the same. A chap that maybe, I just wondered, I just don't think the same level of hunger that he had at the start is there. Maybe a year away will be doing the power of good in terms of maybe getting a bit of hunger to come back. I don't know, like, he's living and working in Dublin. That probably doesn't help in terms of the journey down, and maybe you're not within the local scene in terms of being one of the lads too. And look, maybe I think the best thing he could do is maybe go away for a year if that's the case. But if it is, or it's work commitments, if it's work commitments, you'd wonder, will he come back at all? Like, so, and like, what is he, 20, 28, 29? Like,
29.
Yeah, so like, there's no doubt about it. I don't think we've seen the best of him in the last couple of years. And personally, I'd love to have seen him play in around the half forward line, because, as you say, if he picks the ball up midfield, half forward line, his stride, he just glides past people. And I just see, how do you stop a guy coming at pace like that? Like, and it's look, for his sake, look, I don't think he owes Tipperary football. Anthony's been playing with the Tip football seniors since 2011, 2012, I think. So look, it's 10 years there, a long time. Like so, but look, it's an opportunity there. I think Sean O'Connor is an exciting talent coming through. You think he'd have a great file in there with Conor Sweeney. And I'm very excited to see what Sean O'Connor does this year. Like, and in terms of like without Quinlivan, without Brian Fox is retired, maybe being in Division 4, it's probably not the worst place to be in. And but I think definitely a sense that Tip have to rebuild, and I suppose the place maybe where you can afford to maybe try players and maybe potentially get away with it in terms of still being able to get wins will be down there. But look, I don't think there's any guarantee Tip will going to come out of Division 4. It's probably something we'll talk about next week, previewing the start of the National League. But I think they'll be under pressure to be promoted. Like it's going to be tough. Like you have a Cavan down there. You probably have Leitrim buoyed by Andy Moran's arrival. You'll have Antrim there who are always strong, and you'll have Wexford look like they're picking things up under Shane Roach. So like I don't think it's a guarantee Tip are going to be promoted. I think it'll be a bonus if they are.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. So that's it for Tippcast this week. We're, as I said, we're back for 2022. Don't forget to pick up the Nina Guardian. It's in the shops now. And thanks very much, Shane. We'll chat again next week.
Talk next week.